TJ Watt became the highest paid
Yes,
player
sir.
in the NFL. And an interesting story about TJ Watt is that he actually went behind his agent's back and agreed to the deal. So because his agent was looking to get even more money. And TJ Watt, he wanted to end the whole debacle, and he said, no, sign me right now. He signed the deal, so he went behind his agent's back.
Did he fire his agent?
I'm not sure. He probably didn't. Didn't. But he got a 4-year, $112 million contract, I believe. He became the highest paid defensive end in the NFL. And TJ Watt, this is well-deserved. Ben Roethlisberger said it earlier in the week. You give him whatever he wants. This past season, he had 41 quarterback hits, 23 tackles for loss, and 15 sacks. He's a 3-time Pro Bowler and 2-time All-Pro. And as great as these accolades sound, I don't think that he's even as good as J.J. Watt when J.J. Watt was at the same age doing what he did.
No way.
Because J.J. Watt was a different animal. He was a different beast. But
and that's not disrespectful to say.
Yeah, because T.J. Watt is still elite. Now that they have secured T.J. Watt, where do you think the Steelers' defense is going to rank this season?
And last year they were 1.
In points allowed?
I'm asking.
They weren't 1. Rams were 1.
Okay.
They were definitely like a top 6 defense in the league, though, last year.
They went 11-0, 10-0, whatever it was.
They folded after that.
They had the 3rd best defense in the NFL.
Okay, take that into account.
Okay, so I still think they'll be top 7, top 6. I think you got T.J. Watt, Joe Hayden's still there. He still plays at a high level. Them getting Minkah Fitzpatrick, if I'm not mistaken, not late into the season, but they didn't have him the whole last year. I think it was in a trade.
It was 2 years ago. 2 years ago they got him midway, and then they had a full season last year.
He had his full season in the system. Now he's back. He's fully, they still got him. You still got that defensive line. Now you get to keep T.J. Watt. I don't see why they make a drop-off. They still got most of their core guys on defense. I think they'll definitely be a top 5, top 6 defense in the NFL. That offense just has to catch up to that defense. And if they can contain the consistency throughout the season, I don't see why they can be as competitive as they was last year. Last year we saw them go 10-0, 11-0, whatever it was, and that defense being as elite as it was. Now, people were trying to throw out that they wasn't playing competition at the time or in the beginning. They were playing bad teams. But still, you play who you play, and you got to guard who you guard. And I think on defense, they still have the weapons to compare with any defense in the league. So I think they'll be top 6, at least.
I think they're going to drop off from 3. I think asking them to be 3 with losing Bud Dupree, losing Mike Hilton, losing Tyson Alalu, right? That's how you pronounce his name. He came back.
He's still there, yeah.
I'm bugging?
You are bugging. He's there.
Are you sure?
He's there.
Bro, just look it up.
That's what I'm looking at. He's gone. Listen, regardless of that, he's there, he's not there.
All right.
Their line's going to be good with or without
Maybe he's
him.
hurt.
It said he left. Maybe I'm bugging. Apparently not.
He is there.
Okay.
Trust me, he's there.
All right, he's
the
there.
club too long.
So, all right, you lose Bud Dupree. Obviously, he's been one of their better defensive players outside of T.J. Watt on that line, that linebacking core. You lose Mike Hilton, who was very solid for the secondary last season. Obviously, you had Joe Hayden with him as well, and you lose those pieces. Secondary, I'm concerned. Joe Hayden's getting older. I don't know what Cameron Sutton's going to do this season. It's a question. He could play very well. It's not out of the realm of possibility. I'm just not sure he is going to fill in Mike Hilton's shoes right off rip. And I think that as good as Minkah Fitzpatrick is, and as good as Joe Hayden has been over these last few years with the Steelers, I think that Joe Hayden getting a little bit older, it's going to take a toll on that secondary. And the pass rush is going to be good enough where it's going to give the secondary a break. But ultimately, I think that the secondary is going to be the reason why the Steelers lose some games. I think their offense is going to be obviously plays a part in that, as in it's been a little bit inconsistent the last few seasons ever since they lost Le'Veon, they lost Antonio Brown. Obviously, Juju has done a decent job of filling the void. He had a solid season, touchdown total-wise. Claypool was a nice surprise last year. Deontay's a solid wide receiver, just a matter of if he can hold on to the football. But down the stretch, he was really solid, but it's just too inconsistent, especially with the fact that the run game was spotty. But defensively, you lose these guys. Obviously, you pay T.J. Watt, so that's firm, but you lose Bud Dupree. I'm thinking that they're still top 15 for sure. But if they dropped out of the top 10, I wouldn't be too surprised.
I don't think that Bud Dupree is that big of a loss, especially coming off of his knee injury. You don't know how he's going to be. And they picked up Melvin Ingram, who has been one of the top defensive ends with the Chargers. He's now in Pittsburgh with so many great pass rushers. It's going to make his life easier. The Steelers did face pretty weak competition last year. The Giants, Broncos, Texans, Eagles, Browns, Titans, Ravens were their hardest stretch of games. Then you go on to the Cowboys, Bengals, Jaguars. It was a fairly easy schedule. They faced tougher competition down the stretch. And you look at this season, they start off week 3 facing the Packers. Then they face the Seahawks week 5. Then they have the Browns, the Chargers. They have some tough games. The Titans again, the Chiefs, the Vikings. They have tough games this year. But I still think this defense is good enough to be elite. I think their defensive line for sure is elite with TJ Watt coming back.
Definitely.
He was going to play regardless, but now you have him long term. Tyson Alualu's coming back from injury. He's off that IR. He's there now. Stephon Tuitt, Cameron Hayward, Melvin Ingram. This defensive line is going to be dominant. And Devin Bush last year was absolutely amazing.
Yep.
He had his ACL injury, but I think he's going to be back this year. And even if he's not 100%, they have Joe Schobert to kind of take off the load. And Joe Schobert was an amazing linebacker with the Browns. Didn't get noticed in Jacksonville because it's Jacksonville. I don't think Mike Hilton was that big of a loss.
Okay.
And I think Cameron Sutton is better because he can play outside and he can play inside in the slot. I think this year they're going to have Justin Lane play the slot. And I think Cameron Sutton is going to be that outside corner. Last year, their starting outside corner was Steven Nelson.
Yep.
I think Cameron Sutton is better than Steven Nelson. And last year, he really impressed me. Justin Lane is a name to look for because he can be that potential breakout player for the Steelers this year. And Ahkello Witherspoon, I think, is also a guy who was solid on the 49ers. He went to Seattle, but I guess they didn't want him anymore. And now he's in Pittsburgh, and I think he's a pretty solid corner. He's not a game changer, but he's a solid corner. I still think this is a top 5 defense in the NFL. And even though I don't have the Steelers winning the division, I think they're getting slept on.
That's a tough division.
I think they're getting slept on because people don't view Ben Roethlisberger as one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL. But coming off elbow surgery, having that elbow injury, 1 year later, throwing for 30 touchdowns and having 4,000 yards passing, he was phenomenal. If it wasn't for Alex Smith coming off of that gruesome leg injury, Big Ben would have won Comeback Player of the Year.
For sure.
And they were even debating whether he should win it because he came back and had a great season. Alex Smith just came back and played. Alex Smith was a below-average quarterback, but they gave him that award because it was a sympathy award.
It was a straight miracle of God. He even laced up again.
I understand what you're
100%.
saying completely, but if we're going by what the definition of the award is,
I understand.
it's a player coming back from an injury or an off season and playing great. Alex Smith, what he did was great. What did he play great? He didn't play great, but I would have given him the award regardless too. I would have done the same thing because Alex Smith, I saw the documentary of him getting that surgery.
Crazy.
They were about to amputate his leg and he came back. But Big Ben, any other year, he's winning that award. That's why I think the Steelers are being slightly slept on because I think their defense is still top 5. I think Matt Canada is going to be a great OC for them. Randy Fitchner, I think, is what cost them games last year. And now the Steelers are ready to make a run. I'm not sure where they're going to finish, but I do think they're going to be in the playoff race, and they could even surprise me and finish at the top of this division. It really depends on Cleveland because Cleveland, they were good last year. They surprised us in the playoffs, but they also didn't face much competition.
They played
in fact,
Pittsburgh.
they were outscored by their opponents last year in the regular season. They didn't score more than their opponents, but they still won games. That is a stat to look at carefully because did the moves they make this offseason warrant them being at the top? You don't know. That's a big question mark. But regardless, I think the Steelers are being slept on this season.
Another thing to add, Joe Schobert going and getting added to that linebacking core is a pretty big get for them too. Schobert was really solid in Cleveland. Then he went to the Jaguars, right? He had a stint there. Obviously, the Jaguars weren't successful, but now you bring Schobert into an effective defense. That is something to take into account. But I'm going to stay firm. I doubt that they, like I said, I doubt they go past 15. There's no way that happens. But I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that they drop around 9, 10, 11.
I don't think they go out of 10.
Just because that secondary, I'm not a huge fan of. Terrell Edmonds is not good. He's not a good safety. Joe Hayden, it all banks on whether he's going to still continue to be Joe Hayden, which at this point, I'd be a fool to doubt him. But at the same time, Father Time catches up on everyone. And cornerback shelf life especially, too. It's a lot of wear and tear. And in this NFL, you have to be borderline perfect. And there are a lot of good receivers in the NFL. In that division, there's not the greatest weapons.
I only
wide
see
receiver
Cleveland
wise.
and Cincinnati.
No, that's what I'm saying. In that division, they're not going to have to worry too much about receivers other than Odell. I think Marquise Brown is a problem.
He's not a problem.
I think that he finished the season
Odell,
last year
Landry,
very good.
Boyd.
Landry, he's falling off, unfortunately. He's
better than
think
Brown.
Brown is a problem and Landry isn't?
Well, Landry is he's shown a decline from the year
Landry's
prior
better
to
than
this
Brown
year.
still.
Yes, because obviously Landry has shown more, but Marquise.
It's not even that he's shown more. Last season he was better.
Is Brown even better than Sammy?
My thing is, I agree with that sentiment for sure. Marquise Brown second half, impressive.
Is Brown even better than Sammy Watkins?
Yes.
I don't know about that.
Yes. The thing is, though, like we're digging too much into Marquise Brown, even though I do think he's good. He's a good receiver, in my opinion.